Hey everyone, the Eagle Reaper / Reactor is back, and I've decided to make a video about the movie Gladiator 2, Gladiator Dos. Um, yeah, and I'm doing it just because I've seen 1 and 2, and I feel like I could say something about it, right? Maybe I'm not as invested or know as much about it as some of you guys might, but at least I can just still share my thoughts about it and sort of see what people are saying. And the reason why I decided to react in the first place is not only because I thought it was an interesting movie for sure, but also because a lot of people have been saying a lot of things about it. It's been just another popular, heated movie of this year that I'm like, all right, if I can get my hands on it, if I see it in the theaters especially, then I think that's gonna help me best sort of um, put my thoughts together um, into this thing here. Yeah, so um, let's begin here. Alrighty, so first of all, let me think here. Um, the movie itself is, as a lot of people are saying, not as good as the first one. And to that, I'll say, sure, okay, it makes sense, right? Because the first one was really, really good, and the way Ridley Scott directed it, and you had actors like Russell Crowe, and all. And the supporting cast and crew was just amazing, top tier, perfect writing, the lines, the dialogue, and the way everything looked was amazing. So it seems definitely hard to top. And there's whole idea of a sequel curse. That the second one is usually never better than the original, and maybe that is true. But in no way does this make the second one a bad movie. It's just falls short because the first one just sets such a high bar and a standard where that the second one have to overcome. And yeah, it could have tried harder to overcome it, that's for sure. But there were definitely some cool ideas that Gladiator 2 explored, revisiting this world that Ridley Scott created and going back to this, time period, this era, this is a period piece movie, which some of you guys may be fans of, or not, and that's totally okay. But like the writing and the dialogue and just some of the shots, especially the action in this one, looked pretty good. I gotta say, especially with the technology and all being used and what's at play, and the way that they try to be historically accurate, the way they try to represent everything, and the artisticness of the film really made it seem like okay, I can see why people enjoyed it. So maybe for a fan of the history or the culture or just interested in these types of movies, I can see why, people were excited to see this one. So I get it, and yeah, all I gotta say is it definitely looked cool. Like some of the scenes, especially in the way the dialogue was being said, or like the background music being played, these small things elevated the film, and especially the details of the set designing and the costumes and all were like okay, they were really going for something here. So I can see it and I can appreciate the hard work that goes behind it. Christopher Nolan came out and said that this was one of his, I think it was his favorite movie this year, actually, which is amazing, And of course, Gladiator 2 also had an amazing cast and crew as well, right? Like, we can't deny that, Ridley Scott came back as directing, of course, but then we got, you know, um, just amazing cast and crew. And of course, when you have Denzel Washington, that's like, yes, you know, he always brings his vibe, this presence into his movies. It really just gives it his all. That's why people say he's one of the best actors they've ever seen. So, I can totally get that. And I think he may be returning in Gladiator 3. Maybe. I think that he said that that's one of his last films. So there's a good chance we could see him again for part 3. But I'm not going to discuss any of that now. We're just talking about this movie here. As far as, how it relates to part 1, it's the second one, right? So, it's about, the little boy who we saw in the first one, now he's all grown up. So the film makes him the main character in this one, and he sort of has his own path, his own journey, and it's still, of course, related to some of the events that happened in the first one, and his sort of some, like, um, things that he has to figure out himself, and once he finds his way, he finds his path, and, he decides, does he want to be a fighter, what kind of fighter he wants to be, when he becomes a slave, he becomes a gladiator, he gets to decide what people to save, what people to kill, and how he wants to how he wants other people to essentially view him, right? So a lot of things go on. I'm not gonna get too much into it. If you've seen the film, you already know what happens. But if not, I'm just gonna give a brief summary. But in my opinion, all I'll say is if you're really interested, you may give this film a go. If you've seen the first one or haven't, that's totally up to you, But considering how this film is 24 years after the original, it's definitely been a long time, right? So yeah, it's like, I mean, you get what you put out of it, right? But they definitely tried to recapture the magic of the first one. Of course, that would be hard to do, but the way they tried to respect the original one, but also bring in new people into this one, which they did, right? Most of the characters in this one were pretty brand new, but the story still felt kind of powerful within its own way. I still felt kind of like confused by some things that were going on, but and how like it was just wasn't as powerful as the first one, but some amazing scenes just made up for it, and the way that they looked was just perfect. How they tried to recreate everything, in my opinion, was done pretty well. All right, so I think we can all agree on some of the things that I've said so far. What else? You know, the way the fight scenes were done in this movie were obviously pretty well, right? Um, and overall, I can't just describe much of this film. It's overall like just a feeling you get, like a vibe, and whether it's a fight scene or just a powerful like dialogue scene going on, you can truly feel like the emotional weightage, the toll happening, and how the guy basically has sort of this dream essentially, of like a vision for like the future of Rome, and how you know um what it looks like, and how that's what his grandfather wished to happen, so he's trying to, sort of bring that here, He's decided, to spare people's lives and to end all this fighting and killing, and how, the town should become, peaceful again and live among harmony, So that's sort of what he's trying to do, And of course, he has to, like, fight a bunch of people and, what the public thinks and all that, And Denzel Washington, of course, who just did an amazing job with his character. So, it definitely felt like there's a lot of elements going on, which, were done in a nice fashion. So I think that definitely helped this film. And, there's going to be a third one, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, But just like the way this one ended off also had like this powerful feeling and ending. Because I remember, like, the first one feels like it doesn't have a second one. It just feels like a perfect ending within itself. But with this one, you sort of get a feeling that there's a bit more to come, right? And I think the director made it pretty clear that they are thinking of making a third one. My question, though, I do have, and maybe you guys can answer, is after, Ridley Scott finished, the first one came out, were there plans of making a second one, or did that happen until, like, recently, Because it's, like, 24 years after the first one came out. So, like, was it, like, a Top Gun thing where, like, they waited a long time for the sequel, or was this, like, more of a recent thing where they just decided to make another one now, when, like, enough time had passed, I guess, for the boy to grow up or whatever. But just let me know, and let me know what you thought about this movie, what you liked, what you didn't like as much, in my opinion, I get why, like, the runtime happened, but I feel like just the pacing could have been a little bit better and more meaningful, because it didn't feel as long as it actually was, but, like, I guess some of the scenes may have dragged it on, because, like, I'm a huge fan of, like, just action and stuff, right? So, like, I just eat that up, right? Um, but, if it's not like powerful dialogue or anything, then that's when I sort of get lost in all of it, So once I like truly understand everything and like the symbolism and the meaning behind everything, I think only then can you truly enjoy these types of movies. But I think that's just my 2 cents about that. And yeah, movie's a 7 out of 10 for me. It's good, not as good as the first one, but again, the action, the way the visuals were and everything was represented was cool. Just felt like it could have been better. Um, you know, and similar to how like powerful the first one was, but still a pretty good film. probably it may not be as bad as the first one people are saying, unless like, those fans who are like die hard of the OG and can't really stand the sequel. I get it. It's not as good as the first one. I understand, but there's no need to like say this is like horrible and like one of the worst things that they've ever seen. Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on, with the monkeys and all of that. That's why it's not a perfect 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 film, but it still has its moments which help it out, I guess. Um, but yeah, the way that I guess like those two brothers were acting was kind of strange and weird. I don't know what the whole idea behind that was. If they were given like more powerful roles, I would be, you know, um, what's it? I would have probably enjoyed it more. But um, if not, then that's okay, I guess. But he just appointed like this monkey as this really powerful position that became pretty weird. And then Denzel Washington was just his character was just trying to get in between them, and make himself powerful. I guess that was sort of his end goal, so that's cool. I really wish the Juba returned in this one. I know that they tried to do that, but it didn't work out. Either due to for like does it get like how what's it, the main character, the main actor who played Juba in the first one. He has a really busy filming schedule because now he's like super duper famous and stuff. As a celebrity. But I really wish they could have tried to work out something because I knew they didn't really want to recast him, and that I think he was in the scripts, in the early scripts for this film. They were working on that, so I was just wondering, like, could they still have like tried to get him in there some way somehow, or like at least referenced him because he was such a cool character in the first one, and like for me, like I thought he did a really great job, and assuming he was still alive, I wish you could have seen him in this one and maybe train the boy to like become like the new like gladiator and stuff and like told him stuff about his father and like what kind of man he was. Like in my opinion that could have made this movie really good. Tied back to like the first one, bringing elements from it instead of because this one doesn't tie back into the first one as much. In my opinion, I feel like they could have been connected a little bit better, and that's just one idea I had. Why couldn't they brought in Juba or at least referenced him in some way, shape, or form? Because he was probably one of like the best characters from the movie. I mean, all characters in that movie were pretty good, but he was one of my personal favorites. But anyways, I said, yeah, I give this a 7 out of 10. Again, could have been better, but overall, still pretty good watch for a movie. Above average, I guess, but some of the things that worked in this film worked really, really well for it. And I guess Ridley Scott tried to do the best he could do, which is nice. I guess I'm just wondering what's going to come next after this one. What's the direction he's planning to take this um, franchise, I guess, towards, and I guess just what's going to come up next. But I guess we'll find out and see. Probably not for another 24 years. That would be insane. It'll probably come, in my opinion, sooner than we think. Because I remember, let me tell you another story. So, my mom actually saw this movie um, in like the year, was it like 2008, right? Um, she said like it was like when they were renting out movies through a Blockbuster subscription. Well, when I grew up with movies and stuff, it was more like Redbox or streaming, that sort of stuff. Not Blockbuster. That was like way before my time. So she said that's how she watched it at first, and she remembered the whole thing pretty well. So I was able to understand what happened, and at first, I thought it was kind of boring, but eventually, I actually ended up really enjoying this, and so did my brother. I think my brother my brother's a little kid. I think my brother enjoyed Gladiator 1 more than Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I understand those are completely different movies, but I mean, maybe if you're like into cinema, maybe you'll understand that yes, Gladiator was a better movie, but for a kid, dang, that's insane, you know? But there's that, I guess. Um, what else? I think that's about it. I guess we'll see what happens next. And yeah, there's that. Alright, before I wrap up here, let me just tell you what's up to come next. Sonic 3 is probably going to be the next movie that comes out after this one. Next movie review up and coming. But as far as trailers go, there might just be a video for the Superman teaser, which is about to come out soon. So yeah, I'll probably make a video reacting to that. But anyways, that's it, you guys. Thanks for watching. Eagle Reviewer / Reactor is out now. Take care, y'all.